Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. Today we are actually doing something slightly different. I thought that we would kind of do a small little comparison between a take note and the Hobonichi Hon. I have it in an A5 size. And if you're sort of on a fence of figuring out which one would be more suitable for you, then this is my take on which one is for you. So if you wanted to see my thoughts and my quick little review of both of them, then just stay tuned and why don't we just dive right in. If you haven't had a chance to see my previous video where I was kind of talking about unboxing the Take a Note planner, please make sure that you watch that first. I kind of talked briefly about why I even purchased this to begin with. I have been very, very hesitant to use the Hobonichi cousin, Hon. I'm keep calling it cousin. You know what I mean. It's the Hobonichi Hon. I've been really hesitant in using it in 2025, mainly because I've seen a lot of reviews and things like that of having issues with the paper. But even besides having issues with the paper, I think I was just a little bit hesitant, mainly because of the size, which was always sort of like the thing that drew me in to begin with. But I'm really realizing that with my planner system and my journaling system, I end up kind of repeating similar information. And even though I really love the hardbound, like book-bound, like these planners and journals, I really love this concept. I'm just not very drawn to this. So I thought that I would just kind of walk you through like the different features of how the Take a Note is slightly different, especially if you've never owned one before. So when it comes to the Hobonichi Hon, I guess my hesitation up to this point has had a lot more to do with the size and just the fact that I didn't really want to have to constantly repeat certain information just so that we have sort of like this huge family memory keeper. So I'm opting for something slightly smaller with a different layout, and we'll go over the layout between both of them. Again, I wanted to kind of do that in case you're not familiar with it, and then how they're different or how they're similar to one another. So let's actually start with, and I will, unfortunately, I will do like a pen swatch. I will just kind of do the very back just so that you can see the pen, the paper quality and how everything is. I guess I can do that like on a page where like most people don't write anything. We'll just do that here on the graph. Let me actually just mark that. So let's first talk about, I guess, like the first comparison is we're going to kind of talk about is the size. So as you can tell, the Hobonichi Hon is an A5 size planner, and the Take a Note, let me just take this out of its little case. I ended up getting like this taupey colored case for it, and literally everything just kind of fits perfectly in there. So let me just set that aside so that you can kind of see side by side. So obviously this has more of a harder cover, thicker cardstock. This one, it feels more like an actual cardstock, and it has some embossing and then some rose gold foiling in there. So the main things that you will notice is you have a calendar here for the full year for 2025. When you open up the Hobonichi Hon, you not only have access to the full year, really similarly to Take a Note, but then you also have 2024 and then you have 2026. So this is useful if you really need the reference of the previous year, or if you're going to be pre-planning things like trips and things like that going into the next year. But for the most part, for most of us, we generally just need the current year. So I do think that this is kind of a waste of paper in my opinion. I never really use this for anything, honestly. Now we move into the perpetual calendar. Here it's a little bit different because you actually have two different types of perpetual calendars. One is more like in a small column. So this is more ideal if you're kind of like wanting to do specific tracking, or there's like a specific thing that is happening on one of the days of the month. And then you move forward, and then really similarly how you have the perpetual calendar in the Hobonichi Hon, it's really, really similar here, but as you can tell, everything is just like slightly more muted. Obviously here, this one is the English version. This is also the English version. Okay, so when we're looking at the perpetual calendar, obviously you'll notice that here things are like the weekends are highlighted. Here it's very minimal, or it's very subtle. That's the word I'm looking for. It's just a more subtle way of doing, like you can do like tracking and things like that. And then we're moving into the monthly. So the monthly, as you notice here, your grid on, so the grid on the Hobonichi Hon, it's very defined. It goes almost all the way to the edge of the page. You do have like a little bit of edging here in the bottom, and then you also have a column on the side. It's nice. It's very spacious. You will notice you have like a large block of like writing space where you can kind of write whatever you need to. You will also notice that with the Take a Note planner, your grid system is like slightly smaller. The color of the paper is going to be different, which we'll talk about in a moment. But then here, your monthly, you have a much thicker column here, and then you also have a thicker column here, and then you still have a column on the right hand side. So you have like ample space for decoration. And keep in mind, like this size, the size that I actually purchased is a B6 size. So size wise is still, this will always feel slightly smaller, just because obviously we're not comparing A5 to A5, but I wanted to show you just the size difference, and then how you can kind of change the layout and still kind of feel very spacious, and it doesn't feel very confined and constricted. Now let's move on to, obviously the Hobonichi Hon comes with a weekly layout. So this is your specific weekly layout. It starts with each day. So basically you have your full 7 days here. Each one gets its own column, and then you have a sidebar here where you can keep track of whatever you'd like to, and then you have a small little calendar here. Your time blocking is also available between 5 in the morning all the way up to 4 in the morning. So you have a full 24 hours available. And then moving on to Take a Note, it changes slightly. You will notice that things are, again, just it's just done in such a different way, where to me, it just becomes a lot more functional. Let's just take a look at February, for example. So it's worth noting, like just kind of compare side by side. You do have like a full sidebar here. You actually have like the highlight of what week we're on, so that we don't have to waste space with like a full monthly calendar here, which I think is actually brilliant. It's much easier to just take up one column so that it can indicate what day of the month we're on. And not only that, but I also think that here, the rest of the numbers can be used for another purpose if you choose to, if it's something that you want. If you wanted to be able to like track something here, or if you wanted to use this more like a to-do list and then you're okay with the numbers, I think that would be a really nice way of using this sidebar. Now, the layout here kind of changes a little bit. So for each day, it's almost sub-segmented into 3 different sections. So here's one section, here's another section, here's another section, and then this entire bottom row is left completely blank. It's just basically a grid. This gives you so much more flexibility of what you can do with it, whether you end up adding extra decoration, or you wanted to have just like a running to-do list, or something where you wanted to kind of list things out, but it doesn't necessarily fit into the time blocking segment. There's also, I'm not sure if you can, if the camera picks it up. So let me just make sure that we zoom right in. When you're looking at here, the grid system, there is at least one grid that is left kind of blank. And I think that would be ideal for something like this. So if you have something like this, that these are like the number stickies that you can get from Sterling ink. See how it doesn't become obnoxious? And then now all of a sudden you can do time blocking if you wanted to, which I think looks really cool. I think that it looks small and subtle. So Sterling ink, this is really, really similar to the Sterling ink common planner. I do think that this functions more like a common planner, to be really fair, and I'll show you exactly in a moment as to why I think that. But beyond that, the next feature that the Hobonichi Hon has is obviously the daily. And then you have like a full page that is dedicated for each day of the year. And then at the very end, we kind of just finish off the year on December 31st. You do get, I think, one or two, yeah, you have like a few, like I think 4 blank pages at the very back, and then the rest are sort of just like pre-printed, like graph paper, favorites, you know, timetable, all the things. So like they do leave a few pages of just like fun little things that you can kind of do with the planner itself to kind of make it more personalized and make it fun. But like the biggest thing here that kind of almost pushed me away a little bit was actually, ironically, the very thing that drew me in the first place back in the day was actually the daily pages and the size. To me, if I fall behind on my journaling practice a few days, I really feel that level of tension where I just feel like it's going to take me quite some time for me to catch up with this. So I do enjoy the fact that we do have a smaller space available here. So once your weekly is done, then you move into your dailies, but there is no daily. It's all just blank note pages. But the blank note pages are also set up really strategically, which I really appreciate. You have like a little side, like you have at least 1 grid, 1.5 grid here on as a border, 1 grid in the bottom, and it looks like it's about a 1/2 grid at the top. And then the rest, you have these dots, which you might not be able to see very clearly, so I'm just kind of pointing them out, that they are all here so that you can not only divide your pages this way, you can also create quadrants. You can customize it however you'd like. And then you also have like these larger grids, which makes spacing and writing within those spaces a lot more functional, in my opinion. And then, so I just kind of started using it more as a commonplace book. I didn't mind the commonplace book, I will say this. So like going back to the common book, going back to the common planner from last year, it was fine, but eventually it was just, again, it just felt really redundant and I really missed the Hobonichi. So now when we're looking at even just like a weekly, I did start to kind of use it a little bit more functionally and then adding in little journaling and day-to-day memory keeping. As you can tell, I'm only about halfway done the week, but it's so fun. That's kind of my review of this. Like, here's my monthly so far. I love the fact that I can add enough decoration if I really wanted to. And it's just nice. And honestly, it's really nice to have that freedom of not having a daily check-in. And the other thing is that like, it's nice not having the daily check-in because I already have the Hibino. And this is like literally 2 pages in one day. So part of me was sort of wondering, what's the point of having a full daily here in the separate setup, and then I'm having to redo most of that writing in a separate journal. Like, we're kind of duplicating information. So I really like this. I feel like I can kind of write more as like a family memory keeping. I can write about my own experiences, but more like larger events and things like that. Like, I really like this size, and this just works for me. I will see how I'm kind of referring back to this, but I do enjoy kind of checking in with this. And then now let's talk about the writing experience and the paper. I know most of you guys are really wondering, how is the paper? I would say that, so it does have a Tombow River paper, the same way that you would find it actually in Hibino and in Hobonichi, but Hobonichi has its own special paper. I haven't done extensive research on, you know, the weight distribution and how they make it. I know that they have Tombow River paper, and I know that they recently changed it. So what I thought that we would do, instead of getting into the technicalities of it, which most of us will not really, because we're not in the distribution or we're not really in the production of these planners anyway, it won't really matter all that much. But for the sake of this video, I thought that we would literally just do a side-by-side little swatch pen test. And I will sacrifice this page. And I'm actually going to be using the pens that I would normally use within each of these planners. So we're going to have one fountain pen. This is most commonly what I would end up using, which is from Sailor. I also have a clean color dot marker. I also have the Sarasa in 0.5. And I have a highlighter. So I thought I would keep the pen test fairly simple. Actually, you know what? We're going to swap out this pen just so that it's fair. We're going to swap it out to the Kaweco Sport, just because the ink flow from my Sailor, even though it's a medium fine nib, you guys already know that with Sailor, it always writes more like a fine, which might give you. It's almost like I don't want it to give you like false hope, like how thick or how thin the paper is. So let's just use the pen that I would normally use in either one of these planners. And I mean, I usually use multiple Kawecos, multiple Sailors, but these are usually my most reach for pens. And right now I actually happen to have a vibrant pink fuchsia color for the month of February. So I'm definitely sure that things will show up. So let me just write pen test at the top. Oh, and if you're wondering, this is a medium, I mean a fine nib. I guess the main thing that we're looking at is ghosting. There is very, very minimal ghosting here. As you can, like, I can kind of see it. Not really, actually. I can't really see it. No ghosting whatsoever. I find that the paper here, and I mean, let me show you a close-up. I do find that, as you can tell, like even as I'm pressing down on this paper, you can see what it says in the previous page. So I can see already this printing as they were printing heavier. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, that the paper in the Hobonichi Hon, at least the one that I have here, is thinner. It's significantly thinner than what I have in the Take a Note. Okay, let's look at a highlighter. So this highlighter is from Kokuyo, and it's in Dusty Olive. And again, no ghosting that's happening here. I'm not expecting any ghosting here either, but still. Let's take a look at the dot markers. These are also, they have a tendency of kind of showing through the other page, the other side. Now I will say this, it's a lot more legible here than it is here. And let me show you a close-up. So it's significantly more legible here. Than what you have here. See how it's a little bit harder to read here? And then last but not least, I'm not expecting too many issues with this, but it's definitely worth noting the Sarasa clip, and this is in a 0.5. Very legible. It's legible here too, so it's not that there's an issue with it, but see how thin the paper is, where you can see to the other side. Take a look at also the Kaweco Sport. There is no feathering. There really is no issues with it, but I do think that this is now their new paper. So it's just going to be, a slightly a thinner version of what you would expect from a Tombow River paper. Let me just zoom right out. And then ultimately, I think what most of us are wondering is, who is this for? Because really, like, we can talk all day about pen quality and about paper quality and about layouts. Here's what I think. A person who will end up using the Hobonichi Hon really needs the intricacy and the micro detail that this planner provides you with, where you can not only pre-plan you can pre-plan and you can take information from the previous year going into the next year. So you would probably love this. You would probably really, really love like the details, tracking, and all of that. I don't think that this is ideal, like the perpetual calendar. I don't think it's really ideal for doing actual goal setting planning. However, I do think that this serves as a really functional tracker if you wanted to kind of look back, or certain reminders that are kind of coming up like a few months out. Perfect for that. The larger monthly layout would allow you to literally manage every area or every aspect of your life. And then the weekly gives you enough space where you can space things out so that you can not only keep track of things that are going on. If you wanted to do time blocking, this would give you all of the opportunities for time blocking. You can write before and after. If you're doing like specific time blocking, it would give you like a nice large visual representation of how to structure your week for maximum productivity. And I think that when it's used that way, this is a fantastic planner. If we're using this for more like journaling and things like that, because it's a larger size, it would allow you to add more things in there as far as memory keeping is concerned. So you can add like larger pictures, a larger memorabilia, that sort of thing. So that you wouldn't feel constricted of like, you would have to kind of choose of what to kind of keep track of, or what to memory keep. You know what I mean? And then the daily I think would be ideal for someone who wants like a small planner, and then wants a space where you can add all of your decor, or you can journal, or you can use this as more like, you can use this in like multiple ways. But like if you wanted somewhere where you can just write down your to-do list, or, like longer format writing, or like extra reminders and things like that, and you needed extra space for it, because there's a larger space allowed here, it would kind of give you that option without having like multiple sticky notes and tearaway pads and that sort of thing. This would really eliminate a lot of those extra planners and notebooks and notepads that you might find that you might need if you have a busier schedule and you just literally need like, oh, what did I do on May 31st? Okay, here is everything that I need to know for that day. So that's kind of how I feel about this planner, which I think it's really designed for a person who really needs all of that space. And then with Take a Note, it feels like it takes on this idea of minimalism and functionality, which I really, really love. It's a really clever way of like doing the layout. And even though I haven't used it for very long, I very much like this. The paper quality gives me like straight up like traveler's notebook vibes. It kind of gives me like the same nostalgia, the same feeling that I get whenever I'm using like an actual traveler's notebook insert, because it's that thick, but don't think thick as in like it's a heavy type of paper, because it's still thin in comparison to like a traveler's notebook, like something that I would have like in Midori, like something like this. So it's not the same thickness. The A5 notebook from Midori does not actually claim to have the Tombow River paper, but the Hobonichi does. So the Hobonichi does have that, and it's a really similar feeling. The main difference is really obviously like the color and the sizing of the planner. So love this. I love that the monthly gives you so much space here, It just feels like there's room to breathe, which means that you can go as minimal or as much as you want with decor. You're not really restricted. You don't feel like you're going to be like cutting into certain days, which is really lovely. And as you can tell, like I can add some of my larger stickers and I don't feel constricted, which is really cool. And then the weekly is it's definitely going to be something to kind of get used to. Oh, I should also mention, this is something I really, really love. Look, everybody lays flat. As someone who's left-handed, this is like a dream come true. Again, it's not to say that I had this issue with the Hobonichi. I'm just saying that it's something to kind of note that if you're wondering if it lays flat, it absolutely does, which makes the writing experience, again, especially when you're writing across a few days, it makes it really pleasant. I love this layout. I feel like this is sort of the area where it's very much, it's functional and it's all about productivity. And then here I can use this for journaling, for reflection, for things like that, which is also very cool. It's a different, it's kind of asking me to use a different way to be creative, which is really nice. So far, these are my thoughts. Am I a huge fan? I don't know yet, but so far I'm really liking it. I'm liking the fact that there is a sense of change. It's something different. I like the fact that I bought a case, like an actual cover for it, which makes it, you know, so much easier to just kind of protect it. And mind you, like if I didn't buy this, I do have another B6 size cover, but I feel like this one is special because it came from Take a Note. I don't know. I get weird like that. But here's your question of the day that I would love to know while I'm putting this back on. Your question of the day is, have you tried the Take a Note planner? Have you tried out this planner yet? And if you have, what are your thoughts? And if you haven't tried it, but you have a Hobonichi, which one would you be willing to try it out? So either way, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. I would love to hear from you, obviously. And this is all I wanted to share with you. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe. You can do all the things. Obviously, you just hanging out with me here, it absolutely means the world to me. I do appreciate you just hanging out with me here. And all I have to say is just keep planning, keep journaling, keep doing all the things while we're making decisions about planners. And I cannot wait to see you guys in my next video. Bye.